just have to flood a country's public square with enough raw sewage.
And if anybody is lying here, Senator, it is you.
Once they lose trust in their leaders, in mainstream media, in political institutions, in each other, in the possibility of truth, the game's won.
Hey guys, so let's get that chill music back. So I'm just gonna kind of give you a quick rundown what this is. I made this movie Epidemic of Fraud, and it got some views, but not a lot. But there was actually a version that came out years earlier in 2020. It was originally called Broken Truth. And I made it in a point in time where it was, I think, October 7th was the timestamp on this one, 2020. And what it is me trying to anonymously put out information so that I could keep my career in Hollywood, but at the same time get the truth out there. I wasn't trying to get attention for it. I wasn't trying to get any kind of recognition or name or anything like that. But I think the big guy had other plans, and later I ended up releasing it with my face on there and my actual voice and everything else. So I don't know. I've been thinking like, well, you know what? I should go back now that we have all this information about Fauci coming out from 2020, and just kind of let you know what was publicly available even back then. This was something that that really affected the whole world, and I lost a lot to tell these stories and do this. I gained a lot, but this is not a thing that you do for money. That is for sure. At least I'm really bad at making money with it. But whatever the case, I think I'd like to show this. I may pause here and there, and if you guys want to ask any questions, like why'd you use that font or whatever, please feel free to hit it in the chat, and I'll try to keep an eye out for it. And I don't know, go pour yourself a glass of red, and we'll go back in time together. By the way, I do anonymize my voice, so I apologize for that. And I was yelled at by saying, "Oh, it's too fast. You're putting too much information out there all at once," because I was really trying to cram it in under an hour, and that's what it was. Now, what you'll notice about this too is that there are some things that are in Epidemic of Fraud, about an hour and 15 minutes of things in Epidemic of Fraud that aren't in this, and a lot of that reflects things that we discovered later, reporting that other great people did across the world. And like I said, this is what we had at the time, and some things changed. I got more clarity on certain people within the film, the original version. So actually, I didn't even know what this was going to look like. So anyway, think of this as a time machine, and I'll look out for the chat. Let's just do this. Yeah, I'm kind of embarrassed because it's a little cheesy and melodramatic in parts, but like I made it really quickly in the fall of 2020 because I was just so pissed off. All right, well, let's see what we got. Let's kill this music.
The following video was created by journalists with the assistance of medical doctors, nurses, academics, emergency management, and law enforcement, spanning all political parties. To ensure the safety of our investigators, voices have been disguised. Sources and references have been maintained for accuracy. Branding and labels influence opinion. To avoid this, logos, party affiliations, banners, and all manner of distraction have been removed when possible, except when journalistically relevant. See the people, hear their words, watch their behavior, and form your own opinions.
Americans ultimately always do the right thing, but only after they've tried everything else.
Now there's an optimist.
And right now we're trying everything else.
We knew these medications were safe. We treated these patients for that 5-day regimen. On day 1, we gave them 400 milligrams of hydroxychloroquine twice a day on day 1. On days 2 through 5, we gave them 200 milligrams twice a day.
You see it on TV.
I used zinc, hydroxychloroquine, and azithromycin within the first 5 days of the onset of symptoms.
you read about it on social media. Doctors from coast to coast are in a war with our medical establishment and research institutions.
There are 12 studies that show that hydroxychloroquine plus zinc and other companion medications, when used early in high-risk outpatients, convey significant and substantial benefit in reducing the risk of hospitalization and mortality.
Our patients is that it really only works in conjunction with zinc. So the hydroxychloroquine opens the zinc channel, zinc goes into the cell, it then blocks the replication of the cellular machinery.
The National Task Force constituted by ICMR recommends the use of hydroxychloroquine for COVID-19 cases.
The idea is to intervene when it makes the most sense.
But if you ask your doctor what's going on, they don't want to talk about it.
Many of the developed countries around the world that are actually prohibiting doctors and sanctioning them if it is prescribed to their patients. And such a violation, I have to stress, has never occurred before for any medication ever.
We know the drug has been working on middle-aged and younger veterans.
What if you found out that most doctors have not done the research they quote or even read the studies?
This is medicine, and medicine should be based on data and science.
What if you found out that the public doctors we trust were ignoring and in some cases hiding studies that hold the key to saving your life, the lives of the ones you love, and perhaps the fate of an entire country?
This is about science and data. There are randomized trials that show that it doesn't work. There are observational trials that show that it might work.
There are some studies that suggest that it might work. There are other studies that show that it doesn't work at all.
Changes to basic science methodology, threats from hospitals, and influence in every level of our entire medical establishment and government have rendered your doctors mute, blind, or worse, complicit.
I call on the World Health Organization to stop the study. Their study is designed and is killing people at a rate that is extraordinary.
Every day, another 1,000 Americans die from COVID-19. While in China, deaths have been almost completely wiped out. In the next 45 minutes, you will find out what treatment China uses that we don't, and why. It all starts with the science and data.
Many Americans have read studies and heard media reports about this drug chloroquine, which is an anti-malarial drug. It's already approved, as the president said, for the treatment of malaria as well as an arthritis condition. That's a drug that the president has directed us to take a closer look at as to whether an expanded use approach to that could be done to actually see if that benefits patients. And again, we want to do that in the setting of a clinical trial, a large, pragmatic clinical trial, to actually gather that information and answer the question that needs to be answered and asked and answered.
The drug companies oftentimes do the clinical trial that doesn't answer the clinical question.
The Chinese study from Wuhan reflected statistically significant improvement in recovery from fever, from cough, and in pneumonia as well.
That was not a very robust study. It is still possible that there is a beneficial effect, but the study that was just quoted, and on a scale of strength of evidence, that's not overwhelmingly strong. It's an indication, a hint of it.
A study released yesterday on hydroxychloroquine is shockingly irresponsible. Even the Secretary of Veteran Affairs had to admit the weakness of this study.
That's an observational study. It's not a clinical study. It was done on a small number of veterans. Sadly, those of whom were in the last stages of life.
Basically, patients were a few steps from the morgue.
Breaking news this morning, a new study shows, and this is an expansive study, that the anti-malaria drug that the president touted repeatedly.
The largest study to date of its kind.
In The Lancet, which is a very influential medical journal.
It's large but shows real danger here.
Debunk a lot of the miracle cure claim that's been peddled by President Trump.
The president has been reckless in his promotion of this drug.
But the president does not know what he's talking about when it comes to science.
How many people listened to him? How many people took it?
Let's bring in Dr. Supan Desai. He is one of the lead researchers of the study.
This study involves 671 hospitals and 96,000 patients from all around the world.
671 hospitals over 6 continents.
The new findings, published in the Lancet Medical Journal, span across nearly 700 hospitals, 6 continents, and 15 1,000 patients.
It is high-quality evidence.
We have a data and safety monitoring board which looks at the data. They are independent, so there's no prejudice on the part of the investigators because they're doing the trial or the drug is from a certain company.
And I think before we start making claims on medications that work or don't work, let science do its job. Let data drive this discussion.
I think the off-label use of these medications in hospitalized patients with COVID should immediately stop.
Well, the president ought to stop taking it too.
Well, he stopped taking it yesterday, from what I heard.
Chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine both are associated with a higher risk of dangerous heart arrhythmias and an increased chance of death.
An influential article which found the drug hydroxychloroquine increased the risk of death in COVID-19 patients was retracted on Thursday.
It was all fake.
Surgisphere has just a handful of employees. One is an adult content model, yes, and another one writes science fiction for a living.
And its implications led several other COVID-19 studies to be halted.
This study had, of course, triggered the suspension of HCQ clinical trials around the world.
That the WHO suspended the trials because of this study that was published in The Lancet.
Used alone or with a macro light, they estimated a higher mortality rate.
The Lancet and New England Journal of Medicine were party to, as was Dr. Fauci was, they spiked the use of hydroxychloroquine.
Dr. Fauci himself basically declared the drug a lost cause, and yet a deafening silence from Dr. Fauci today.
But this is medical fraud for political purpose.
Where are the mea culpas from Dr. Fauci, from all these medical journalists, from all of these media types who gleefully proclaimed this drug is dead?
The Recovery Trial Study Protocol note is funded in part by the Wellcome Trust and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation.
We really don't know if we're giving the best care, and we need to get the evidence so that we can move forward with confidence.
Why wouldn't we use this for something that's killing people?
The dosages that you'll be using for coronavirus are far greater than the dosages that you use for malaria or that you use for autoimmune diseases such as lupus.
The doses being used in both Solidarity, the WHO trials, and the Recovery, the UK trials, they were both using levels that were about 4 times the maximum dose for any medical condition. There are no medical conditions at which these doses would be prescribed. When Landry was kind of confronted with these issues, he apparently was making some kind of careless mistake, believing and maybe even misinterpreting hydroxyquinolone or hydroxychloroquine.
So let me explain. The doses were chosen on the basis of pharmacokinetic modelling. These are in line with the sort of doses that are used for amoebic dysentery.
Do you know what's the lethal level of hydroxychloroquine?
I don't remember off the top of my head, but it's something like 10 times that.
The World Health Organization set these levels.
The trial was amended so that patients who were unconscious and had no family available could be placed without their consent by their physician into this trial. And later, the trial was amended to add children. This was an open label study. All of the hospitals, doctors, and nurses who participated all over the world knew what they were doing. This is a golden standard.
This is a study designed by the World Health Organization that is not only designed to fail, it's designed to kill.
Dr. David Boulware is leading the trial, and he joins us now to tell us more about it. Doctor, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
So we basically launched a clinical trial that's looking at prevention of COVID-19 disease in high-risk people who have been exposed. In the next week to 10 days, we'll be fully enrolled, and we'll have a result back in about 3 to 3.5 weeks.
So let's bring in Dr. Scott Gottlieb. He's a former FDA commissioner.
The study that came out that was a rigorous study in the last week that showed that it didn't provide a benefit when used prophylactically, used to prevent infection.
It was a very well-conducted study.
According to a July article from Marilyn Marchione, an Associated Press reporter, Dr. Boulware believed in this study so much he paid $5,000 of his own money to buy drugs to use in the trial. According to grant disclosures, The medications were donated by a company that 3 weeks later entered negotiations with Gilead to make generic forms of their more profitable remdesivir.
We conducted a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial to try to eliminate bias and get the best quality data. So what we found was that there was no effect of hydroxychloroquine. So in the hydroxychloroquine group, it was 12%, and in the placebo group, it was 14%.
Dr. Boulware's interpretation of the study, which never actually saw patients and was conducted by telephone only, was recently debunked by Marcio Watanabe, a PhD statistician out of Brazil. After analyzing Dr. Boulware's data, he discovered that it in fact did show a statistical benefit of hydroxychloroquine. Another interesting result of the study was that despite higher than recommended doses, no serious side effects were seen. The New England Journal of Medicine has still not published this update.
It was a double blind, and so what that means is that neither the participants nor the investigators actually knew what they were receiving.
All of those randomized control trials were not blinded. The people knew which medications they were taking because it was stamped on the pills.
The only thing blind in this study were the incredible conflicts of interest that were never disclosed. The day after he announced his study, Dr. Boulware signed a deal with Revive Pharmaceuticals. Another doctor in the study, Dr. Matthew P. Ching at McGill University Health Center in Montreal, disclosed payment as a member of the Science Advisory Committee of a company called Genie Life Sciences, claiming it was outside the submitted work. He failed to mention that Genie Life Sciences is actively running trials and marketing a COVID treatment featuring their proprietary P38 kinase inhibitor, the approval of which would be directly affected by the success of hydroxychloroquine. On top of that, Dr. Ching failed to mention his participation in the WHO Solidarity trials with Oxford, a study that used toxic doses on deathly ill patients, many of which who were unconscious and unable to approve the treatment. In October of 2019, Dr. Boulware gave a speech where he disclosed a research grant from Gilead, maker of remdesivir. Once the damage was done and the drug was discredited, on July 6th, Dr. Boulware submitted a new disclosure form to the American College of Physicians. As he states, Dr. Boulware has no relevant relationship with any company which makes therapeutics for post-exposure prophylaxis to coronavirus, unless you listen to former FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb.
It's remdesivir, which blocks viral replication. You want to get it in early before you have a lot of virus on board.
Dr. Boulware added new grant donors, acknowledged new relationships, including $17.79 worth of food beverage funded by Gilead. While we admire his attention to detail, he neglected to disclose the $3.26 million donation from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to the University of Minnesota for COVID-19 research, 2 weeks after his study began. If hydroxychloroquine was proven to be effective at preventing hospitalizations and deaths, the fear-based fountain of hundreds of billions of dollars for tests, genetic sequencing, vaccines, plasma, drugs, and research for COVID, all based on emergency use authorization, would end. In April, right after he funded this study, Bill Gates made his wishes to all the scientists he's funded abundantly clear.
Bill Gates, who describes his foundation's role in helping fund vaccine efforts in a blog post. Every additional month that it takes to get the vaccine is a month when the economy cannot return to normal. There is a lot of discussion among governments, the World Health Organization, the private sector, and our foundation about how to organize these efforts.
These are just a few of the incredible conflicts of interest we have discovered involved with this study, which should be retracted, but of course it won't be. Unfortunately for the University of Minnesota, this type of behavior is par for the course.
Today I'm going to talk about financial conflicts of interest in medicine.
Last year, Dr. Jason Fung gave a presentation to medical students. His words were highly prophetic.
The universities are the most corrupted places in the world. These people are the people that are in the newspaper. They're the ones that are teaching medical students. They're the ones who are teaching the dietitians, the pharmacists, everybody. These highly, highly corrupted people who don't even know it.
The numbers are black and white. They don't lie.
We have questions that need answering before we can trust this data. Now, here's a question. How much of our science is done badly this way?
We depend on editors, the peer review.
Industry payments to editors. Each editor is getting $475,000 in that year. These are the people who are arguing to the FDA that drugs should or should not be approved for certain indications. How is it that the New England Journal of Medicine, our top journal, actually allows that? It's so biased. This is why the insiders say evidence-based medicine is largely useless or harmful. Selective publications, you have rigged outcomes, advertorials, people who work for the company who write an editorial for the New England Journal of Medicine. Journal editors are on the take, but there's publication bias, and then financial conflicts of interest like everywhere.
The New England Journal published an absolutely horrific article where they concluded that only clinical trial data has any validity, and anecdotal data or empirical real-world evidence is not to be used to set medical standard of care.
And the clinical trials is a big part of the content of the New England Journal. Jeff Drazen, when he became the editor, said that he wanted to move the journal toward publishing more basic science and more clinical trials. He thought there was too heavy an emphasis on epidemiology, observational research.
I trust the New England Journal of Medicine. That's my journal. It's like, it's corrupt. That's what the insiders have said. The whole thing is a pile of crap.
The randomized placebo-controlled trial is in fact the gold standard.
We have a whole vast medical literature that was not the standard. So why is it suddenly the standard now? All of the evidence needs to go into this discussion, not just a shibboleth of randomized controlled trials.
The company will do a placebo-controlled trial, assuming that it's ethical to do that. And so they don't answer the question the doctor really wants them to answer.
Questions like, despite a $5.9 billion budget, why isn't Dr. Fauci able to provide us with a study that shows whether or not hydroxychloroquine works early in tandem with zinc and Z-Pack?
Practicing physicians are going to rely on review articles in the New England Journal of Medicine, not realizing that they're actually written by the company.
Clinical trials system is maybe broken, is too strong a term, but it's definitely underperforming.
Relying on a so-called theoretical randomized controlled trial is a red herring, because that is not the way the FDA works, it is not the way scientists work, it is not the way anybody works in real world.
Well, of course, hydroxychloroquine, as we've said before, is very cheap. Big Pharma does not make its money on cheap generics, but they do give a lot of money to NIH, CDC, and the WHO.
The Food and Drug Administration is ending its emergency authorization for the use of hydrochloroquine to treat COVID-19, saying that the malaria drug carries too many risks without any apparent benefit.
There's been a number of studies now that have come out that haven't shown a benefit. Some have shown a harm, as well as the information that it now could potentially interfere with the activity of remdesivir, a directly acting antiviral that we know does work against coronavirus.
This accidental admission that hydroxychloroquine interferes with a patient's ability to get sick enough to need remdesivir is brought to you by former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb. Scott's a board member of a company called Illumina. For the last decade, Illumina has been at the forefront of gene sequencing technology for companies like 23andMe. On June 10th, less than a week before the FDA revoked emergency authorization for hydroxychloroquine, the FDA approved Illumina's application for COVIDSec, a gene sequencing test for COVID-19. It not only tests you for COVID, it also obtains your entire genetic code, the blueprint of life. According to FDA Commissioner Stephen Hahn, genetic sequencing information will help us monitor if and how the virus mutates, which will be crucial to our efforts to continue to learn and fight this virus. On June 17th, Illumina acquired a company called Bluebee. Bluebee helps manage data like your genetic code. Their website says they provide unlimited data aggregation and mining, optimized data analysis workflows, all in a secure data science environment. Perhaps that's why Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos led a $100 million round of funding for Illumina's spinoff called Grail in 2016.
The medical literature and experience is full of situations of anecdotal, retrospective cohort studies that have proven to be wrong.
We've identified several antiviral medications that seem to have a positive impact. There was an article published yesterday talking about remdesivir shortening the length of stay in the hospital.
The data shows that remdesivir has a clear-cut, significant positive effect in diminishing the time to recovery. It was 11 days compared to 15 days.
Gilead shares they are surging.
This will be the standard of care.
Standard of practice is set by a number of physicians who have a large amount of conflicts of interest. But the problem is that people die.
So we would have normally waited several days until the data gets further to dot the I and cross the T. But the data are not going to change. Some of the numbers may change a little, but the conclusion will not change.
If Big Pharma does a study that shows that its drug is no good, it has the option of not publishing it.
If this was a study conducted in China, it was terminated early, and it failed to show any benefit for remdesivir versus the standard of care.
We want to thank all the collaborators that have brought remdesivir to this point, and that certainly includes NIH and Dr. Fauci.
We authorized Gilead's application for emergency use authorization.
The FDA makes a decision which is sometimes totally independent of any finding by the advisory committee.
This was lightning speed in terms of getting something approved, and from clinical trial to getting it authorized from the FDA, it's been quite the speedy but also effective process.
The people who lead these guideline committee, they're on the take.
The FDA has a huge history of drugs going into widespread use in the medical community for decades that have not been established on the basis of randomized controlled trials.
The fact that it's an existing drug, that helps, but you still got to go through trials.
Dr. Rayford Brown chairs the FDA Opioid Advisory Committee with approving the painkiller OxyContin. The FDA didn't even require Purdue Pharma to undergo clinical trials.
Opioid company Purdue gave a lot of money to the doctors to say that, hey, if you are in pain, you can't get addicted. It's like, that actually wasn't true at all, but that's what I was taught in medical school. If you're in pain, you can't be addicted.
I'm quoting, the FDA has a lack of transparency and uses the advisory committees as cover.
Half of the chemotherapy drugs used in cancer were used without randomized controlled trials. The antibiotics, amoxicillin, for example, that parents use with their children all the time, day in, day out, was never established with a randomized controlled trial before it was used.
China stopped the studies because they couldn't fully enroll them, because they stopped accruing cases in China, because their epidemic had subsided,
This accidental admission that China has beaten the virus was brought to you by former FDA Commissioner Scott Gottlieb. He's a board member of the company Pfizer. Pfizer recently announced that it's manufacturing remdesivir for Gilead. Pfizer also recently purchased a company named Mylan. Mylan makes the very cheap hydroxychloroquine in West Virginia. In July, Mylan announced that it will be manufacturing remdesivir in generic form for Gilead. None of these conflicts of interest have been disclosed by CNBC.
I don't know why people weren't more positive all along about remdesivir.
The Food and Drug Administration is under the direct control of Congress.
This is our fault. We don't have the fortitude to kick pharmaceutical lobbyists outside of our congressional offices.
It's often the captive of the industry that it is supposed to regulate, because the industry, the drug industry, has a powerful lobbying effect on Congress.
Everything that we believe has been tainted.
So what's driving this blind obsession to disprove the effectiveness of a drug that is being used right now, tonight, in medical centers across America?
The risk of seeing 15% of that nursing home die was just not an acceptable risk. All the patients have done well.
I showed an 84% reduction in hospitalization, a 99.7% survival rate of my patient.
The Henry Ford Health System in Michigan tonight is announcing 13% of COVID patients given hydroxychloroquine died, while 26% of non-hydroxy patients succumbed to the disease.
I think this makes remdesivir irrelevant.
C19study.com maintains a database of all studies featuring hydroxychloroquine. Despite the best efforts of the WHO and the National Institutes of Health, all current studies demonstrate the benefit of pre-exposure prophylaxis, post-exposure prophylaxis, and early treatment with hydroxychloroquine.
The FDA has no evidence whatsoever for outpatient use of hydroxychloroquine of any adverse events.
Zero cardiac complications.
The side effect is not the reason you should stop this drug at this moment. They want people to believe there is no drugs for COVID-19.
These graphs represent deaths per day across countries all around the planet. Green represents news reports of nationwide hydroxychloroquine treatments, and red when medical leaders prohibited it.
We've seen excellent outcomes with hydroxychloroquine in Italy, in Spain, in France, in Turkey, Morocco.
We see in Egypt, they use it for early stage treatment and also prevention.
Notice the difference between countries that allow it and countries that don't. When you compare the deaths by country, clearly something is wrong. But when you look at deaths per million in these countries, one thing is abundantly clear. With the incredible infectiousness of this disease and their extreme population density, the only way China doesn't have 1 million deaths is if they knew to use this drug since January. On February 4th, 2020, Nature published a letter to the editor from scientists at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, indicating that chloroquine and remdesivir would be effective, but that chloroquine would be more effective, clearly demonstrating the benefits of prophylactic and early symptomatic usage. They concluded, since these compounds have been used in human patients with a safety track record and shown to be effective against various ailments, we suggest that they should be assessed in human patients suffering from the novel coronavirus disease, which explains why chloroquine is still a recommended treatment in China, and our medical leaders knew it.
Lie spotters are armed with scientific knowledge of how to spot deception. They're no real original liars. We all make the same mistakes. We all use the same techniques. These behaviors are just behaviors. They're not proof of deception. But when you see clusters of them, that's your signal. Now, there are going to be times when someone makes one expression while masking another that just kind of leaks through in a flash. There's one I can teach you that's very dangerous and that's easy to learn, and that's the expression of contempt. It's the only asymmetrical expression.
I want to ask you about something in the news. The White House staff have gone negative on Dr. Fauci, who is a colleague.
When anger turns to contempt, you've been dismissed. It's associated with moral superiority, and for that reason, it's very, very hard to recover from.
75% of everyone in Spain is taking with success. French and Chinese take it, and the doctors are taking it. There's a lot of positive things, and I would be very curious, doctor, to see if anyone who's taken this for lupus or arthritis has gotten the coronavirus. That would be one way to go the other way to see about this study. But let's talk about some way to get. Do you want to respond to that?
No, I mean, obviously, this is a good drug in many respects for some of the diseases you mentioned. And the one thing we don't want to happen is that individuals who really need a drug with a proven indication don't have it available. But just one, I can't escape getting back to, you said 75% of doctors think that it works. We really don't care what 75% think it works. You know, that's not the issue.
No, I should clarify. Because in Spain, 72% of the doctors in Spain are prescribing it.
Okay, good. Okay, well, that's fine.
Attitude is by far the most overlooked but telling of indicators. An honest person is going to be cooperative. They're going to show they're on your side. They're going to be enthusiastic. They're going to be willing and helpful in getting you to the truth.
Do you now regret not advising people more forcefully to wear masks?
Okay, we're going to play that game. Let me explain to you what happened back then.
Should be a yes or a no.
No, there's more than a yes or no by the tone of your question. I don't regret that, because let me explain to you what happened. At that time, there was a paucity of equipment that our healthcare providers needed, who put themselves daily in harm's way of taking care of people who are ill. We did not want to divert masks and PPE away from them to be used by the people.
Okay,
now that we have enough, we recommend.
I've got two more questions, so thank you for that, Dr. Fauci.
We all do the same thing. We rehearse our words, but we rarely rehearse our gestures. We say yes, we shake our heads no. We tell very convincing stories, we slightly shrug our shoulders. We commit terrible crimes, and we smile at the delight in getting away with it. Now, that smile is known in the trade as duping delight.
The CDC and our doctors aren't lying. You're not lying.
Look, we may occasionally make mistakes based on the information we have, but none of us lie. We are completely transparent with the American people. And my experience on the task force is the vice president and everyone there has been completely transparent. We let the American people know what we know. Again, as new information comes, that may need to be changed because we're learning every day. But nobody lies to the American people. We're completely transparent and honest. That's my job. That's my job as a public servant. We take that as really a sacred oath, is to be honest and let the American people know what's going on.
Diane Downs shot her kids at close range, drove them to the hospital while they bled all over the car, claimed a scraggy-haired stranger did it. And you'll see when you see the video, she can't even pretend to be an agonizing mother. What you want to look for here is an incredible discrepancy between horrific events that she describes and her very, very cool demeanor. And if you look closely, you'll see duping delight throughout this video.
But at night, when I close my eyes, I can see Christy reaching her hand out to me while I'm driving, and the blood just keep coming out of her mouth. And that, maybe it'll fade too with time, but I don't think so. That haunts me the most.
We call these hot spots when the words you speak and the language your body speaks just don't convey. This is where deception starts.
Attacking a third party, all right? It's the same sort of thing. You know, look, it's the store's fault. The store doesn't have very good security. It's a big deal. Anytime you're talking about aggression, any sort of attack, it's big.
This is Dr. Francis Collins, the head of the National Institutes of Health. This interview was conducted on July 17th. With 139,000 dead Americans under his watch, this was how he behaved.
Why do you believe the greatest country in the world, with the best medicine, the best doctors, the best scientists, has failed so badly in responding to this challenge? Because if you see what has happened in Asia or in Europe, they've gotten it under control. We have failed.
Well, we have a big, sprawling country with a whole lot of people who are very independent-minded. That's part of what's made us great. But it's also, at a time like this, a difficult circumstance to be able to try to manage. And in many ways, we are geographically very dispersed as well. It's not like you're trying to manage COVID in Taiwan or South Korea. This is a place where we've had great, enormous outbreaks in New York and other places that have barely been touched. So it's a really hard problem. And I do think we're getting our act together here by perceiving just how big the risk is. Before we go, Wolf, I do also want to say a little bit of positive news here. In terms of the science that's going forward to develop new therapeutics that are going to help people who get very sick with this, and those vaccines, those things are happening at a remarkably rapid pace. And so far, the science looks really good. And that's what I spend most of my time on. And I'm happy to say everybody's gotten together on that, and we're going to do our best to get through this and out the other side.
You said you would refuse an order to dismiss Dr. Fauci, who works for you, and you laughed, saying, and I think I'm quoting you now, I think you heard my answer. To be clear, are you saying you would not carry out an order to fire Dr. Fauci?
I could not imagine doing something of that sort, no.
If you were ordered to fire him, what would you do? Would you rather resign than carry out an order, let's say it came from the President of the United States?
You know, Wolf, I really hope that this kind of circumstance never comes to pass, and I'm not sure it's a helpful conversation to have, but I certainly would defend the contributions and the remarkable character of Tony Fauci, and I would find it very difficult to be in a circumstance where I was asked to do something like what you're describing.
That unconscious delight in getting away with a whopper can be associated with deception.
This footage was taken 6 weeks after the hydroxychloroquine paper was published by the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
There has been some promise with hydroxychloroquine as potential therapy for people who are infected with coronavirus. Is there any evidence to suggest that, as with malaria, it might be used as a prophylaxis against COVID-19?
No, the answer is no. And the evidence that you're talking about, John, is anecdotal evidence. So as the commissioner of FDA and the president mentioned yesterday, we're trying to strike a balance between making something with a potential of an effect to the American people available at the same time that we do it under the auspices of a protocol that would give us information to determine if it's truly safe and truly effective. But the information that you're referring to specifically is anecdotal. It was not done in a controlled clinical trial, so you really can't make any definitive statement about it.
We commit terrible crimes and we smile at the delight in getting away with it.
Fight or flight is nothing more than noting the physiological changes that occur when someone's under stress. Stress can indicate lying. For example, decrease in salivation will make somebody swallow deeply.
Macro lied. They estimated a higher mortality rate. The executive group of the Solidarity.
Both are associated with a higher risk of dangerous heart arrhythmias. The real question here really is, with data like this, do we even need a randomized controlled trial?
Our primitive brain wants to tell us to either stand and fight or run away. So it provides extra energy to your limbs. When you're sitting there in an interrogation and you want to run, but you can't, many times you'll fidget with your hands or your legs, or you'll bring them up and then try to cover them in a grooming gesture. When you're telling facts, you simply have to state them. When you're telling a lie, you have to convince the people that what you're about to say is the truth.
Are you concerned, though, that because of this mixed messaging, it's going to continue to create this fog about treatments and misuse of this drug?
So, hydroxychloroquine needs to be prescribed by a physician. There may be circumstances, I don't know what they are, where a physician may prescribe it for an individual, but I think most physicians and prescribers are evidence-based and they're not influenced by whatever is on Twitter or anything else.
We have to listen for the words, what people are saying.
Presidential candidate John Edwards, who shocked America by fathering a child out of wedlock. We're going to see him talk about getting a paternity test. See now if you can spot him saying yes while shaking his head no, slightly shrugging his shoulders, lots of
I'd be happy to participate in one. I know that it's not possible that this child could be mine because of the timing of events, so I know it's not possible. Happy to take a paternity test and would love to see it happen.
Are you going to do that soon? Is there somebody that you can't?
I'm only one side. I'm only one side of the test, but I'm happy to participate.
Okay, those head shakes are much easier to spot once you know to look for them.
If evidence comes up in a trial that under certain circumstances, maybe early disease, I don't know, in certain circumstances, if evidence comes up in a well-controlled, placebo-controlled trial that any drug, including hydroxychloroquine, works, I would be the first one to admit it.
He's using those specific words because he wants people to have a very strict interpretation of what he's saying. What he's doing is committing a lie of omission.
How damaging is that he retweeted the video and defended it again today?
Well, the only thing that I can do, Andrea, is do what I've done all along consistently, is that you look at the scientific data and the evidence, and the scientific data, the cumulative data on trials, clinical trials that were valid, namely clinical trials that were randomized and controlled in the proper way. All of those trials show consistently that hydroxychloroquine is not effective in the treatment of coronavirus disease or COVID-19.
3 statements in order to set up what he's about to say, instead of simply stating it.
Exclusionary qualifiers. Now, by exclusionary qualifiers, I mean things like saying, for the most part, fundamentally, not really. Not really.
At present, there's no data that, especially if you're not in a hospital, that there's any benefit of taking this drug. And so if you're a hospitalized patient, I would encourage people to be in clinical trials to really help evaluate it. But if you're not hospitalized, that there's no evidence that this medicine prevents infection or can treat early infection. That's not known either. And so I would sort of, for people that are trying to swarm their doctor and say, oh, I really need this, if you're not hospitalized, then there's basically no evidence that this is beneficial. And certainly there are side effects and there's harm. And so the people with diarrhea, and so I don't know anyone that likes diarrhea, other than maybe a gastroenterologist or something, a GI doctor. But yeah, it certainly has side effects, and there's no benefit that's known as of right now. And at least within our trial showed that it's pretty conclusively there was no benefit.
A non-contracted denial. Studies show that people who are overdetermined in their denial will resort to formal rather than informal language.
To the charge you've been misleading the American public?
I have not been misleading the American public under any circumstances.
Let's talk about
Lies can betray our country, they can compromise our security, they can undermine democracy, they can cause the deaths of those that defend us. Deception is actually serious business.
It was not our intention in creating this video to discredit anyone, which is why we let their words speak for themselves. The potential reality of what has happened is a nightmare. How could so many doctors across the world be tricked and manipulated into something so horrible? Perhaps this is the answer.
What do you foresee as being the next big thing to change this field?
Well, I'd say the next frontier, and this will show my bias as a software person, is to think of DNA as much more of a program than as a set of constants.
That we have become a major producer of large data sets that are going to be of incredible value for understanding how life works and how disease occurs. And we should not limit our perspective about that just to germline genome sequences. All of these things, which not only you would want to sample once, you'd want to sample those repeatedly and follow over the course of time what's happening to an individual as a window into their biology and perhaps into whether they're at risk for something or even starting to develop an illness. Those are going to be phenomenal opportunities. And we need to be sure that we are not missing the chance as those data sets are collected to put them in a place where lots of researchers can learn from them, compute on them. And those are going to be data sets that are much too big to sit in anybody's server, so it's not going to be on your server or mine. It's going to have to be in a place where it can be accessed, and that's going to have to be in the cloud. And that means we're going to really have to retool ourselves in terms of how we do those analyses. In the era where it is okay to basically sit on your own data set for many years, trying to mine it and then remine it, then remine it again, that era is over. And I'm certainly speaking as the NIH director here. We now have quite a lot of ways to encourage good behavior in this regard. Some of which are, in fact, less pleasant. Some of which are just that we've tried to provide appropriate incentives. I've often said that trying to manage the research community, many people have concluded is really like herding cats. And it is like herding cats, but guess what? I've got a big bag of cat food. It's called the NIH budget, and if it's appropriately applied, it can actually encourage some pretty good things to happen.
Instead of leading the charge to build factories to manufacture more of a drug we know is safe, our medical leaders wasted trillions to play with toys.
So once and for all, should people be taking hydroxychloroquine?
So, just to be clear, we revoked an EUA, an emergency use authorization, at the request of another government agency, BARDA, and this was for drug that was authorized for use in sick hospitalized patients.
Hold up. Didn't the FDA just throw somebody under the bus? Who's BARDA? BARDA is the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority headed by Acting Director Gary Disbrow. Gary reports to the Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response, Robert Kadlec, a former consultant to a company called Emergent Biosolutions. When he was nominated and confirmed in 2017, Dr. Kadlec failed to disclose his previous consulting and ties with Emergent Biosolutions, and later awarded the company with a lucrative contract for a smallpox vaccine. He also canceled funding for a machine that would rapidly produce N95 respirators in a just-in-time production capacity. Kadlec also allegedly ignored repeated warnings in January 2020 about potential shortages of N95 face masks, masks that we sorely needed. But the real question is, why would people who report to the guy that botched our mask supply request the FDA cancel a drug that was saving lives, and to do so in a way that terrified doctors and pharmacists in hospitals from using the drug in any form? Perhaps they were all just tired of faking studies and needed to get back to work approving every single genetic test possible.
All these doctors who are trying to, point out the problem get shut down.
What can doctors do?
Hydroxychloroquine cuts risk of hospitalization in half, more than half.
Our leaders betray them.
Have to respectfully, totally disagree with him.
Has Dr. Fauci ever called you and asked you your opinion and why you have the opinion that you do?
No.
The news censors them.
The $250 million that the Gates Foundation has put into news and journalism. It's hard to really overestimate these kind of financial conflicts of interest.
What are your qualifications to weigh in on medicine more than Dr. Anthony Fauci?
The real issue at hand is the political influence that they're gaining over public policy through their charity.
It is investigating an allegation that the House of Representatives had received $10 million to pass the controversial infectious diseases bill interview.
We will leave no stone unturned.
We read the headline about all the good that they're doing, but no journalists really take a step back and look backwards at what they've actually done.
I'm a physician at UCLA, and I'm a clinical researcher also. COVID-19 is a challenging, complex issue that we benefit from having multiple perspectives on.
If they complain to the NIH, Fauci's wife heads the ethics department.
Doctors being targeted now and being threatened.
We cannot let CCP silence everyone.
If they speak out online, Fauci's daughter works at Twitter and they censor it.
They think you're dangerous. Of course they think I'm dangerous because I'm speaking truth.
The politicians attack them.
Crazy woman he talked about last night about who's an absolute disgrace.
This is the Chinese doctor who tried to warn the medical community about the coronavirus.
But China's Supreme Court even weighed in, adding, quote, "It might have been a fortunate thing if the public had listened to this rumor. But if action had been taken when he and others started sounding alarms, the severity of the outbreak might have been understood sooner."
There's been a massive disinformation campaign that stretches from the government to the media.
And you had Jimmy Kimmel saying the president's trying to kill himself by taking it. Joe Scarborough saying this will kill you. Neil Cavuto saying, what have you got to lose? One thing you have to lose are lives. And you had Chris Cuomo saying the president knows that hydroxychloroquine is not supported by science. Turns out that Chris Cuomo took a less safe version of it.
The makers of the drug remdesivir have set a price for the medication,
$3,100 for the 5-day course.
It's
$3,200, but what you didn't say yet is that Health and Human Services has bought up the whole supply.
How much will you pay to live? The answer is everything.
PJ Haout is a microbiologist with a long and respected career. His critics were very quick to point to possible dangerous side effects.
Dr. Rao, a renowned virologist, published a data for over 4,000 patients that vilified him.
Their faith is ridiculed.
Dr. Stella Emanuel, who, when she's not preaching about witches and astral sex and demon sperm and alien DNA, is part of a group of Tea Party-sponsored doctors advocating for unproven and, according to a number of legitimate medical studies, potentially dangerous COVID treatments.
You saw how the president responded. I mean, he clearly wasn't aware of this woman's statements before, but then even after we had told him what she had said, he stood by her.
In case you were wondering, this is not the first medical doctor with non-colonial religious beliefs CNN has featured.
You want to cleanse your sins in the river? How did I come into this whole equation?
Sorry, Dr. Gupta. Just had to prove a point.
This kind of racist remarks actually would not help.
Finally right about something.
I was not able to get it from the doctor who actually wrote the prescription for my husband and I.
Continue to prescribe it. I do so extremely carefully because I know the administration's looking over my shoulder. I know it.
The drug is working, and it's working better when you give it earlier in the course of the disease.
It's the best drug at this moment for both prevention and treatment. Why do they try their best to stop the use of this drug?
This is deadly. We cannot trust our public health agencies.
If you have a choice between taking that medication and a ventilator, you tell me what your choice would be.
I asked the doctor about it, and she said, you know what? We're actually going to administer that today. And that was a turning point for me.
History is unforgiving. It will become very clear very soon who was on the right side of history, who was on the wrong side of history.
We have a drug that is very safe. We're fighting for our patients.
I'm a pharmacist in New Jersey. In terms of a prophylaxis, I think hydroxychloroquine should be used widespread.
I had to catch myself for a second and say, wait a minute, I'm breathing. I thought I was at the end of my rope.
Politics needs to be put aside at a time like this. We're in a pandemic.
In Ohio, the state pharmacy board has reversed its decision to prohibit hydrochloroquine use for COVID-19 patients.
Should the U.S. ban hydroxychloroquine as a treatment for COVID?
Look around. Could it be that the flames of panic, fear, hate, and allegations of scientific or racial bias leveled at all of us were all fueled by a virus of corruption that spans the entire planet? We've been brainwashed into thinking in 140 characters or less. We've blinded ourselves to truth in an effort to generate likes and retweets from people who in some cases don't even exist. And we've allowed our scientific leaders to convince us that what we see, hear, taste, and feel is a lie. What if the ones who preach the gospel of bias understand it so well because it's their weapon? Is it any wonder why some doctors are afraid to prescribe hydroxychloroquine? Or even now, misguided pharmacists at brands like CVS or Walgreens are refusing to fill prescriptions? As of September 7th, this is still happening. These pharmacists are killing people for no good reason. And even pharmacists that know the truth are afraid to fill prescriptions. So they resort to handing out a drug safer than Tylenol to doctors in secret out the back door. What have we allowed to happen? We are Americans. We have differences, but those make us stronger. Our imperfections give us character. Character is what allows us to see the true epidemic overwhelming America today. Fraud. This is not the time for genetic experimentation or to sing songs. This is the time to kill this virus. Any other goal is treason.
I want you to know I've gone to coronapreventionnetwork.org and I've signed up for the trial. But if I don't get in, I want to know, hey, can I get the vaccine anyway?
If I were you, I'm not sure I would volunteer without a trial to learn from the circumstance, because you might be sort of getting yourself injected with something that ultimately turns out not to be very helpful.
The public thinks that doctors are all crooked. Unfortunately, they're probably right.
Judicial Watch today filed a lawsuit on behalf of the Daily Caller for records pertaining to Dr. Anthony Fauci.
And what's troubling is they haven't given us the records.
The U.S. is charging a top Harvard scientist along with 2 Chinese researchers over hiding China ties and payments.
The National Institutes of Health have 180 at least open cases on fraud, grant fraud. Also, the FBI, they say, working on 1,000 cases related to China and grant fraud, possibly with China targeting these researchers.
There is more to this story.
The reason we became doctors was to help people. But we're not.
You may say it's overreacting, and you want to break the quarantine. All the people have to join us to stop COVID-19. Imagine all this.
All right, so that was it. I don't know how much we got right, but a lot more than I expected, frankly. It was a very interesting experience to make that. And wow, the journey since then, the journey since then has been so crazy, man. I can't even really explain it. I've been embedded with so many different wild and crazy characters in this freedom movement, and has been frankly a blessing, because my old life just would not have allowed me to participate in that. So anyway, happy Fauci Friday, and appreciate you guys that stuck around and watched it, all 6 of you. We'll end this now, and thanks for everything, guys.